The Rise TV and KPMG's Budget Day takes place tomorrow. We're going to be looking, of course, at the breakdown of the 2024 budget that, of course, the President has already presented to the National Assembly, taking place at the KPMG Insight Center in Victoria Island, Lagos. We did this, of course, last year, and we're doing it again. Joining us is Ayo Salami. He's the head of Energy and Natural Resources at KPMG West Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning and Happy New Year to you. So, what can viewers expect from the 2024 Budget Day from Arise TV and KPMG?
Thank you, Lotus. I'm happy that Arise TV is partnering with us to hold this session tomorrow, and of course, also happy to be here to share thoughts on what people should expect from the session tomorrow. I must say, just like you say, this is not the first time we're doing this. We did it last year, which was the flagship, and I think over 2 million people actually tuned in, which was awesome. This year, we expect that it's going to be a bigger and much better event. Now, what should people expect from us? Tomorrow, we'll start off with the senior partner in KPMG Nigeria and CEO of KPMG West Africa, Tola Adeyemi, providing a synopsis of the budget, which again provides overarching insight into the budget. After his speech and providing the context for the conversation during the day, we have the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning come and analyze the budget for us, try to tell us the triggers, the things that went into the budget, and what government intends to do to implement those budget provisions. Other ministers who have been invited will come over and also speak to the budget with respect to their ministries, as it were. That will be from the public sector perspective. We also have eminent personalities that will speak to the budget from the private sector, and that conversation will start with our chief economist, Dr. Emi Kale, who will then provide some macro and micro analysis of the budget. We speak to things like the inflation rate, the impact of the policy of government last year, the policies that they took around fuel subsidy removal, as well as unification of the exchange rate. How have these impacted the budget and what Nigerians should expect in the current year? There will be other sessions, panel sessions around key themes in the budget. For instance, energy, right? Agriculture and food security, technology and digital, as well as a fireside chat around tax fiscal policy reforms and the rest. We also have the NESD chairman come speak to us about his thoughts, and of course, he'll provide the closing remarks. So essentially, we expect that session to be a very insightful session, engaging and enlightening. Thank you.
Robust, very robust. I'm excited, glad that we're going to be doing this again and looking forward to tomorrow. And of course, we encourage all our viewers to tune in. What's the difference in this budget of renewed hope that you can pick out from what we've seen in the past?
Well, so many differences, but I will just focus on 2 or 3. This is the first budget that has been prepared on the back of the thrust of the renewed hope agenda of the present administration. If you recall, the president in his manifesto read out a document called the renewed hope agenda. And again, it means that for the first time in the history of the country, even before the budget is implemented, Nigerians have a feel as to comparing what the government is saying in the budget to a document which they have told us last year they're going to implement. So having that platform to begin to examine the budget against the renewed hope agenda is very good for us. Secondly, it's also to say that, yes, the government has increased number of ministers, right? But again, that hasn't in the sense translated into increased budgetary provisions, and I can put that in very good context very quickly. Last year, the budgetary spend was about 24 trillion naira, right? Equivalent to supplementary budget. If you convert that at the revised official exchange rate of $601 the dollar, that gives about $41 billion US. This year, total spend is projected to be 29 trillion naira. At official exchange rate of 750 naira to $1, that means about $38 billion. So in a sense, the budget actually has shrunk, despite the increase in number of ministers or ministerial portfolios. So it tells me that even if we have increased the ministerial positions and ministers, the government is not necessarily spending too much money to manage that process. Again, if you look at the budget proposals, the government expects to grow the economy by about 3.76%. Now, in the face of reduced spending in dollar terms, right, how do you intend to achieve that? Many ways to explain that. I personally thought that, look, if that happens, it means the government is spending investments to generate that growth to come from private sector, i.e. a private sector-led investment and growth, which is what we always clamor for. Thirdly, maybe again, it's the first time in decades that we can't find that humongous drain on our purse for a subsidy in the budget. It's gone, like President said, it's gone forever. So those are part of the key differences this year.
Thank you for the breakdown. You see, you're giving us a sweet preview for tomorrow. You're an oil and gas expert. How would you interpret what this budget means for this energy sector that you cover for Nigeria?
Okay, so I think it depends on the side of the pendulum you have. And if I may just pick up from the last point I made around the subsidy, right? I expect that policy to take full force this year. In other words, complete the regulation of that sector. If that happens, quite painful as it were, but according to numbers by the MBS, right, FAC allocation to all the tiers of government, for instance, in May last year, when we had fuel subsidy, was about 970 billion naira. In fast forward to October last year, when we had post-removal, that amount has jumped to 1.6 trillion naira. What that tells us is that, yes, it's a painful policy, and Nigerians, of course, need to demand more accountability from the government, from those that govern them. The governors and presidents have more resources at their disposal to pursue their ambition. And that's why, as Nigerians, we need to demand more accountability from our government, because they now have more resources at their disposal by virtue of removal of the fuel subsidy. If you look at some of the assumptions again around the budget, around the energy sector, we hope to do 1.78 million barrels per day. That's quite ambitious from a plan of 1.6 last year. Last year, of course, we didn't achieve it. We only did about 1.33 million on the average, right? OPEC quota for this is 1.5 million barrels per day. And given the analysis by NUPRC, they're saying, okay, the 1.78 is possible because that includes condensate. So by and large, it's feasible if all the dynamics happen in our favor. No militancy, no vandalism and the rest. And then, of course, OPEC quota.
Just to adapt to that, we actually took the exclusive news when it dropped. Heineken Lopobore, who is the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources for Oil, he actually says they're hoping to get to 2 million barrels per day this year. So if you're calling 1.78 ambitious, you think can get to 2?
To answer that question, I will just take us back a bit to that document again, the Renewed Agenda. Yeah. Right? If you look at that Renewed Agenda, the plan of the government is to ramp up from 1.3, 1.4 last year to 2.6 by 2026. And out of that amount, they are hoping that Nigerian producers will achieve 1 million out of that amount. So if there's a plan to that effect, I agree. But there's no clear plan. I think it's going to be a mirage to do that by the end of this year.
Yeah, I appreciate your honest take on that. Oil and gas majors, they've been moving, offshore, deep water. I mean, you are very aware of this. Can anything incentivize them to bring them back to the shallow fields?
I like the use of the words oil and gas majors.
Right.
Oil and gas majors are part of a global network, right? And therefore, it will align with the global strategy. So, global strategy of those majors is driven by economic returns. So, the petrodollars will move to the region and areas where the economics makes sense. If the economics doesn't make sense or attractive, they will not come back. As it is today, if you look at the PIA, the physicals, right, seem to favor offshore operation compared to onshore or shallow waters. And that's why you've seen that movement. Except that happens, I don't see them coming back to onshore fields. Again, don't also forget, offshore operations are less prone to vandalism and oil theft and the rest. So definitely the optics are better for offshore operation.
The Petroleum Industry Act, has it missed the boats or is it better late than never?
Tough question.
I apologize. That's what we do here.
It hasn't missed the boat, right? Yeah. But there's a lot that needs to be done. We have gone to that law and we speak to industry operators. Our prognosis is that a lot still needs to be done. I'll give you two good examples. The physicals around gas, right, is a big problem for the players. There are some gas operations today that will suffer if they go ahead on the PIA. Same thing around the structure of NNPC JV operations with the IOCs. Specific reference to Section 65 of that Act, where incorporating joint venture or incorporated joint venture is made voluntary. If that is left, I struggle when that will happen if it's not mandatory. So those are the issues, and I think the government has recognized these facts, and that's why in the current year budget, there's an amount in the Ministry of Petroleum budget, about 200 million naira for revisiting and reviewing the provisions of PIA. I think that, in a sense, will address some of these issues when they come to the fore.
You know, see, I always get excited when we talk oil and gas because honestly, we could have a whole budget day just on the oil and gas sector.
Absolutely.
I have to ask you about the energy transition. Arise News covered COP28 in the UAE in Dubai. How do you think a fossil fuel nation like Nigeria and other emerging markets fits into this energy transition to renewables that is honestly being driven by the West? What's your take on that?
You see, I would say that the train has left the station, right? You either join or be left behind, okay? However, according to OPEC's World Oil Outlook published last year, right? Global demand for oil will rise to 160 million barrels per day by 2045, about 21 years' time from now. However, they do concede that investment in clean energy will soar during this period, although by 2045, fossil fuel will still play a significant role in the energy mix. Okay, bringing it home to Nigeria as a country, my honest assessment is that we should not panic. Right, we have an energy transition plan in place, right, on the back of COP26, and on the back of that, we also had the Climate Change Act. These two documents spells out the steps we intend to take towards achieving net zero by 2060. And if you ask me, what that then tells us is that we have a plan, we should work the plan, and that's just it. So, but again, I must add a caution. Right? If we produce and we're unable to sell, then that's a problem, because our off-takers today seems to shift from Europe to Asia, India, China, and the rest. If those guys decarbonize earlier than we expect, they are in trouble because we will take our oil. So that's my prognosis. Yeah.
We only have a minute to go. I wish we had more time. What's your energy outlook for 2024 for, I guess, I don't know, maybe you want to do global or stick it to Nigeria alone. What's your outlook?
That outlook cannot be one cap fits all. I will try to break it down into the various subsegments. Yeah. Upstream, I would say, it's neither here or there. There are headwinds, but again, my prognosis is that the government needs to actually take to the finish line some of the divestment proposals on the table, so that either the buyer or the seller have a clear view as to what the investment plans are. Downstream, I see us pursuing the regulation policy. Let's take to the finish line. And then, of course, take our governments, make them accountable for the windfalls from this regulation. Renewables, we have seen some marked improvements. Big projects come on stream last year. We've seen the biggest West African solar cell plant being set up in Nasarawa last year. We've also seen the Oxano 110 gigawatt plant being set up. I see that continuing, and a lot of activities around that in current year. So overall, I think it's positive. I'm always an ardent believer in Project Nigeria, so I see it's positive.
Ayo Salami, Head of Energy Natural Resources, KPMG West Africa. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. You break these things down so well. We're looking forward to an exciting Budget Day 2024 tomorrow. Thank you for joining.